Hello and welcome. This is Misheard Song Lyrics Podcast, and I'm Misheard, and we're doing today's Season 3, Episode 134, with a song by George Benson. The song is called Gimme the Night. The Misheard Song lyric is, "'Cause there's music in the air and lots of lovin' everywhere, so gimme the knife." And the correct lyrics is, "'Cause there's music in the air and lots of lovin' everywhere, so gimme the night." Pretty close to that knife and night misheard song lyric. So let's talk about the song. Let's talk about Mr. George Benson and other fun tidbits that I found doing research doing the song. So Gimme the Night. It's a song recorded by American R&B or rhythm and blues jazz musician called George Benson, talented soul. He released it back in 1980 with his studio album of the same title, George Benson. It was actually written and composed by Heat Waves keyboard player Rod Temperton, and produced by none other the incomparable Quincy Jones. And a Patty Austin provides backing and scat vocals, we'll talk about that in a second, that are heard throughout. And one of Benson's fellow jazz guitarist, Lee Ritenour, also performed in this section. So let's talk about scat. It's not the kind of scat you think it is. Scat in vocal jazz is a type of singing with some improvisation, and they call it with wordless vocables, nonsense syllables, or without words at all. In scat singing, the singer improvises melodies and rhythms using the voice as an instrument rather than a speaking medium. It's so interesting. This is different from vocalese, which is another, form of it, which uses recognizable lyrics that are sung to pre-existing instrumental solos. Interesting. So there's a lot of famous scat singers in the past, and he is one of them. So good to know. The song itself, it did pretty well. It was a commercial success and was Benson's first single to hit number one. It did hit number one on the U.S. Billboard Soul Singles chart. It also peaked at number 4 at the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 chart, making it the most successful pop entry. It has also peaked at number 2 in the Billboard Hot Disco Singles chart, because that's when it came out, and number 7 in the UK Singles chart, where it ties with In Your Eyes as the highest charting single. So let's mosey on down and talk about George Benson and who he is. So he's still with us, thank goodness. He was born George Washington Benson. I wonder if any relation to George Washington, because a lot of, families down the lineage are tied back to George Washington, so I'm assuming so. He was born March 22nd, 1943, so right a couple days after the actual taping of this. So his birthday's coming up, and he is an American guitarist, singer, and songwriter, and he began his professional career at the age of 19 as a jazz guitarist. He's actually considered a child prodigy. I'm just very talented. And he first came to prominence in 1960s playing soul jazz with a Jack McDuff and others. Did not know that about him. He then, of course, launched a very successful solo career going back between jazz, pop, R&B singing, and scat singing, like I said. His album Reason was titled or certified triple platinum, hitting number 1 on the Billboard album chart in 1976, and his concerts were all well attended through the 1980s and still has a large following, not surprised. And Benson has been honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's pretty cool. Let's delve deep more about Mr. George Benson. He was born and raised in the Hill District of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and at the age seven, he first played the ukulele in a corner drugstore, for which he was paid a few dollars. So he started busking at a young age. And then 2 years later, at the ripe old age of 8, he played guitar at an unlicensed nightclub on Friday and Saturday nights. But the police soon found out, closed the club down. So at the age of 9, so a year later, he started to record. Out of the 4 sides he cut, 2 were released. One called She Makes Me Mad, backed with It Should Have Been Me with RCA Victor in New York. Although one source indicates that the record was released under the name Little Georgie, not under George Benson, and that the 45 RPM label is printed with the name George Benson. Interesting. So if you have it, I wonder if it's worth something. It sounds like it could be. The single was produced by Leroy Kirkland for RCA's rhythm and blues label Groove Records. Of course, it's going to be called Groove. As stated in an interview, Benson's introduction to show business had an effect on his schooling. When this was discovered, tied with his failure of his single, his guitar was impounded. Luckily, after he spent time in juvie, so juvenile detention center, his stepfather made him a new guitar. How awesome that you have a stepfather that can just make a new guitar for you when once yours was impounded. He attended and then graduated from Shenley High School. And as a young fella, he learned how to play straight ahead, they say, instrumental jazz during a relationship performing for several years again with organist I shared earlier, Jack McDuff. Some of his many early guitar heroes were country jazz guitarist Hank Garland. And at the age of 21, he recorded his first album as a leader. It's called The New Boss Guitar featuring McDuff. Then Benson, the next recording was It's Uptown with George Benson Quartet, including a Lonnie Smith on organ and Ronnie Kuber on baritone saxophone. Benson followed up with the George Benson Cookbook, also with Lonnie Smith and Ronnie Kuber on baritone and drummer Marion Booker. Miles Davis employed Benson actually in the mid-1960s, featuring his guitar on Paraphernalia on Booker. Let's see. Miles Davis employed Benson in the mid-1960s and featured his guitar on Paraphernalia on his 1968 Columbia release, Miles in the Sky, before Benson went to Verve Records. Benson then signed on with Creed Taylor's jazz label called CTI Records, where he recorded several albums with jazz heavyweights, guesting to some success, mainly in the jazz field. And then the 1974 release, Bad Benson, climbed to the top spot in the Billboard Jazz Chart, while the follow-ups Good King Bad, number 51 in the pop album, and Benson and Farrell with Joe Farrell both reached the jazz top 3 sellers. He also did a version of the Beatles' 1969 album Abbey Road called The Other Side of Abbey Road, also released in 1969, and a version of White Rabbit, originally written and recorded by San Francisco rock group Great Society and made famous by Jefferson Airplane. So he has a lot of influences in the jazz world, also dipping into pop too. So let's now start moving along through the decades. So by the mid to late 1970s, he recorded for Warner Brothers Records and found a whole new grouping of fans that were going to discover Benson. This is probably when I started to discover him at a young age. With his 1976 release of Breezin', he sang a lead vocal track on This Masquerade. Oh, I love that song. This Masquerade. That's that song. And apparently there was they're giving props to a solo by Jorge Dalto, who did the piano intro, which it's beautiful. It became a huge hit and won a Grammy Award for Record of the Year. He also sang vocals on albums early in his career, like I said, The Other Side of the Abbey Road, and I guess he did Here Comes the Sun. And he also did, the rest of his album is instrumental, including his rendition of 1975 Jose Feliciano's composition of the song Affirmation. Then in 1976, also, a good year for him, Benson toured with soul singer Minnie Riperton and appeared as a guitarist and backup vocalist on Stevie Wonder's song Another Star from Stevie Wonder's album called Songs in the Key of Life. So see, he's now collaborating not only with Miles Davis, now Stevie Wonder. And then during that same year, the top-selling album Breezin' was released on the Warner Brothers label, like I said, featuring Bobby Womack penned the title track, and a Leon Russell penned This Masquerade, which is now jazz standard. It's a beautiful song. I mentioned earlier that they won Grammy Awards that year, an album which put, of course, Benson on the limelight of, who is this George Benson? Interesting, did you know, is he had been discouraged at that time from using his singing skills. And this is how sometimes, you know that you just have to bet on your own self, mainly because the company decision makers of the record company were all feeling vocally, not that strong. He should stick to playing the guitar. I'm glad he didn't listen because he has a beautiful voice. Both tracks won Grammy Awards that year, like I said earlier, and he did quite well. The next Did You Know about George Benson is he recorded, did not know this blew my mind, the original version of the song, The Greatest Love of All, for the 1977 Muhammad Ali biopic, The Greatest, which, remember the song? It was later covered many years later by Whitney Houston and made really popular as Greatest Love of All. So look at, they just dropped the. And during this time, Benson recorded with German conductor Klaus Ugermann. The live take on Broadway, so the one that got him on the map of everyone knowing who he is, recorded a few months later from the 1978 release Weekend in LA, also won a Grammy. And then this label called the Quest record label, it's a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, it was also run by Quincy Jones. And that's where we get to his breakthrough pop album, Give Me the Night, which we're talking today, not Give Me the Knife, produced by Quincy Jones. Benson made it into the pop and R&B top 10 with this song. It was written, like I said earlier, by Heatwave keyboardist Rod Temperton. He also had some hit singles such as Love All the Hurt Away, Turn Your Love Around. I love that song. Inside Love, Lady Love Me, 2020, Shiver, Kisses in the Moonlight. And Quincy Jones also kept encouraging George Benson to search for his roots for further vocal inspiration. And he rediscovered his love for Nat King Cole, so I can kind of hear that, Ray Charles, and Donny Hathaway in the process. I can hear some of the Donny Hathaway influences. And so, it, of course, created a string of further vocal albums in the 1990s. And despite George Benson returning to his jazz and guitar playing, most recently, this theme was reflected again much in Benson's 2000 release, Absolute Benson, featuring a cover of one of Hathaway's most notable songs, The Ghetto. And Benson has accumulated 3 other platinum LPs and 2 gold albums. I can tell you with his awards, I can just list them right now. He's won many Grammy Awards. So in 1977, he won Best R&B Instrumental Performance theme from Good King Bad. 1977, same year, he also won Best Pop Instrumental Performance for his album Breezin'. 1977, Record of the Year, This Masquerade. Won another Grammy in 1979 for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance on Broadway. And then in 1981, he also won Best Jazz Vocal Performance for Male. Moody's Mood was the title. 1981, Best R&B Instrumental Performance off Broadway. And the same year in 91, he also won Best Male R&B Vocal for Give Me the Night, all right? And then 3 years later, in 1984, he won Best Pop Instrumental Performance for his title song, Being With You. Did a collaboration and won a Grammy in 2007, so 14 years later, wow, for Best Traditional R&B Performance for God Bless the Child. He did it with Al Jarreau and Jill Scott. I love me some Al Jarreau too. And then that same year for 2007, he won another Grammy for Best Pop Instrumental Performance for Morning. So when I count this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Grammy Awards. This guy is amazing. So what's happening from, later on past the 90s, he actually was awarded an honorary doctorate in music from Berklee College of Music, and he's still, rocking on. Apparently he married a Johnny Lee since 1962 and have 7 children. Wow. And he describes himself as his music focusing more on love and romance due to his commitment to his family and religious practices, because he is a Jehovah's Witness. And he also is a resident of Englewood, New Jersey. So if you all know where that is in New Jersey, exciting, because he is a local with you guys. Before we end this episode, I do want to touch on the music video. Have you seen it for Give Me the Night? It's amazing. So picture kind of like a sunset, and it's probably at some beach somewhere, and I can't tell if it's Muscle Beach or something, but it's one of the beaches in Cali. And you see literally George Benson in the beginning of it with full-on white blazer, black button-down, nice shirt, white pants, and he has his guitar, and he's roller skating backwards around with a group of people behind him, like a Pied Piper roller skating, and they're playing the song. So he's playing the guitar while roller skating front and back, around and around. Later, he's seen roller skating again with the guitar, but this time minus the black collared shirt. So it's just, he's nothing underneath, just his white blazer, white pants, and he has a whole bunch of people following him, roller skating, just boogieing on down. And then interspersed in this music video are clips of him in the same slick white blazer, black shirt, and band performing. So there's band clips. And also, he's driving around in his convertible Rolls Royce with the Lady Love, and then stopping at a giant hot dog stand. And this hot dog stand, of course, is shaped as a big hot dog. And when you kind of go in, I think it's called the Tail and Pup, where they eat hot dogs. So I don't know if there's some hidden message there, And then he starts to do his cool scatting, and ends the video with him back in his Rolls Royce with his Lady Love, and he drives by a giant billboard of himself with the title "Give Me the Night" strategically placed behind. So pretty genius and pretty fun, and I just can't believe how good of a roller skater he is. So I hope you learned a lot. I did with Mr. George Benson. It's now reminding me I need to start singing more of his songs in karaoke, because I love his songs, and we now know that he's won many Grammys. He's a loving family man, and he was a child prodigy, and he can roller skate. If you have any great suggestions like this misheard, just send them to any of our sites through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can also reach us at misheard. That's MISSHEARD songs@gmail.com. And if we pick your misheard song lyric idea, we'll give you a shout out. Till then, keep singing those songs wrong. Bye.